Hi, everyone. It's a real pleasure to talk to you after this first week of our course, Waterworks, Activating Heritage for Sustainable Development. We're here with two of us. So I'm Carola Hein in the chair History of Architecture and Urban Planning. And with me here is Hilde Zenema.
Yes, I'm Hilde Zenema, Erasmus University. Yes, I'm a historian. You've seen me also in the course. So the first exercise was to put in a few words that you thought were typical of water. What struck me was the huge word life. So apparently water is life, life is water, but also big, and there is transports, river, agriculture, so a lot of uses of water as well. Did you have anything that struck you, Carola?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised that life is actually what everybody in the course also takes as the key note. But you made a really nice point also about the concept of the cloud, which we probably hadn't even thought about in the beginning. So it's actually kind of raining words, as one of the learners put it, saying the concept of cloud is individual water droplets suspended in an amorphous entity, which we both thought was very nice to say. But it's also interesting to look at it in terms of the reflections of the learners, comparing the inputs of you all and of the experts, finding out or striking this note that the experts are often thinking at a higher level, thinking about human rights and societal implications. So it's nice to have recognized this in the discussion chat, and please do go on and add more of your thoughts into the discussion to generate this multidisciplinary global conversation.
Exactly, and we have the experts talking about their expertise, but you are all experts in your own case study or your own water system. So that's already very interesting to see. Yeah, also with the first exercise, the first real exercise that you had to put in SketchDrive, water and culture. So let's see what the first one was.
Yeah, I've been fascinated by this one, or by many of them, also because you're all using your own languages and writings. And this one here from Myanmar already shows you is fascinating because it captures the sense of water as a system of purity and peace, but also illustrates it from a very long-standing traditional approach in the image that we see. And Hilde, you had a great remark on that one.
Yeah, our learner said that it is also a New Year's tradition to pour water on each other to purify yourselves from evil. While we here in the Netherlands, and I think in a lot of places, use fireworks to do the same, to get rid of the evil demons and angry spirits for the new year.
Yeah, it's been nice to reflect on this around the world, how water and fire are actually related. But let's come back to the Netherlands.
Yeah, als een vis in het water, to be like a fish in the water. So to be in your element, and as the learner said, totally happy and relaxed with your environment. Positive connotations that you have with water.
And then we have some sayings that we had much more trouble to relate to. Tomarse el agua del florero or subirse por el chorro were both images that we were both surprised of and would not have necessarily guessed the meaning unless our Chilean learner had explained them to us, right? So how do you come from drinking the water from the vase as referring to people that drink alcohol until they pass out? So I'm really curious if that interpretation exists somewhere else. Or the other one about people who abuse trust, for example.
Yeah, by sitting on a jet stream. Yeah, I'm really curious. So we hope to hear more about this one.
And so this is also the goal of the course, to relate these, to gain awareness about how deeply water is embedded in our cultures, in our everyday words, in our conceptualization, and to exchange that knowledge. Because also this example from another learner about water being cut from its aqueduct, then meaning that to solve a problem, you need to look at its source. So you always have to trace it back through the entire pipeline to actually understand where the problem originates.
It's like the theme of our course, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Very systemic. Great.
And so from these elements of water culture, there are also some that seem much more evident. Yes, we've all been looking back at rivers being called mother here in the Indian case, and movements that actually want to give rivers, or actually do give rivers, personhood, so that rivers can use the same legal tools as humans, for example.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it seems like that has been cut from history for a long time. I mean, Mother Earth, Mother Nature, Mother River, and now in recent times we are looking back again. Shouldn't these rivers actually be looked as persons or legal entities? Yeah, it's interesting.
And this is actually one of it's a really fascinating image. I would have never thought that you can see boats and carriages in a flooded street at the same time. I think these are images that tell us also how to reflect differently on how water and land coexist.
Yeah, this is really an example of resilience instead of resistance, right? If people exist in the water, and even there is even a nursery rhyme showing that actually apparently it's quite normal that the streets flooded and still brother and sister go out in the streets, which was a very sweet poem or song.
Yeah, and we still wait to hear more about the flower shoes and how they actually. And then there's all these stories and myths that are embedded in the images you've shown us. Neither of us know about the story about Neptune's revenge by the mermaids of the Calpe coast. So an evil genie being punished for, I'm summarizing the story here, for playing mischief on the mermaids and the local fishermen, and so being turned into stone, being petrified, and now sitting in front of this coast. And actually, I mean, there's lots of different myths about water and rivers and so on. Keep telling us about them, because I think this is a real nice source of knowledge.
Yeah, and especially on the what you talk about a lot, the continuum between land and sea, that there are a lot of stories kind of making sense of that strange zone that is neither completely land, neither completely sea. So I think this is one of the examples of all the powers and metaphysical powers even that play into that area.
Yeah, and then you show us images without water, but all the imprints that water has left. So the fact that people have been able to settle in a specific region was water dependent. And as water changes, also livelihoods disappear. So thanks for adding these kinds of images also into the mix.
Yeah, and this is more clear. It shows an artifact of water catchment in an irrigation system. But what I like about this one is that there is a lot of human creativity or creation involved, not only in the design and the making of the artifact, but also in then representing the work in a drawing or an etching. I think this is even so it keeps, even if the artifact isn't there, it still is part of our history or our heritage.
Yes, and then there are images that are already pointing ahead to what we have thought up for you. So places or institutions like the Tribunal de las Aguas, where the spaces, or the sequies, as they are called, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, are canals that bring water from the river to the places where it's needed. And then there's a whole community system around it to distribute the water. And it's really fascinating to see that these kinds of systems exist both in wet areas and in dry areas, but it's really about building community around water. So do go on with this example and tell us more about it. So this is also that we have now asked you to choose your own waterworks, and we have just collected a few of the examples that we've seen so far. So one like here in India.
Yeah, so the Kund system in Kusum Sarovar in India, which was a system of retaining water that was and is still used by the community to get water to wash, but is also preserved because it is still used. But also is more of a besides a practical place, is also a holy place where people go for pilgrimages or cleaning or worship.
Yeah, and I think so this relationship between water systems and upkeep is also visible in the canal. So unless it is being cleaned, dug up, maintained, which all requires communities around it, it becomes no longer functional and may even fail as a heritage site. So particularly canals of big length that cross multiple communities are an interesting case to study in the course of our of this course. So one of the images that really fascinated me also because of the size, I mean, this is a water mill or a water wheel that is capturing water and lifting it up to the aqueduct. So in order to then carry the water to the city and to the fields. And I don't think that's the way that we usually think of water mills or water wheels. So this is a unique case. And I was reminded that there are also, that Nuria, so the name of this water wheel, is also a female first name. So it would be interesting to reflect further on those kinds of connections.
And also the community there, right? I thought was interesting, seeing the people. Yeah, Metsogoro, one of the historical centers of the Po Delta, and as Corella just mentioned when we were talking, you really have to look very well to see the water there. And the learner told us that it is part of the wetlands of Padua, which are now lost, but might have an important role with once the sea levels rise again. So this is a really interesting case that we are looking forward to see how it develops.
Yeah, and in the discussion on the sketch drive, I also saw conversations about the environmental quality of the water and how that is related to, for example, the wetlands and the whole ecosystem around it. So it's a really nice example how water functions as a system, even if we see it kind of fixed on this one image. So let's take one more look at the mental maps of your waterworks. And this is always a part I really look forward to because it's your own work. It's very informative. It's really inspiring, and it helps the understanding of these water systems. So here is one example from Valparaiso, which is also a working port city and a World Heritage Site, showing how the connections into the hinterland, so through these rainwater channels. So the city is kind of located in an amphitheater-like setting, that what happens in the hinterland, in the mountains, in terms of the humidity, is being channeled into the city in the air, but also in these kinds of lost water streams underground. And they are really part of historic or traditional water systems that helped the whole territory work together. And I think there's other learners too who will talk about hidden water systems and the need to raise awareness about them and to bring them back into our imaginaries, into our thinking, into our policies, into our design. And that's also, I think, what we are inspiring you to do when you choose your own water object.
Yeah, and it might be a bit daunting to draw your mental map or put it online, but you can be very creative with it. You can use photos, you can use things that already exist, but you can also use just a lot of words that come up with thinking about this system. It can be very associative. So we just want to have a peek inside your head, so to say. So don't worry if it doesn't look as pretty as these ones, maybe. But we really would like to see what is going on in your water work. And it also is a good test to see if there is enough. If there are enough links to work with it. So if you don't find enough links, maybe it's better to look for another case study. But yeah, it really helps in working with this water work, associating with all the possible connections, but also to show us what is going on there.
Yes. So remember that the goal is to position one object in its spatial, social, cultural context as part of our Ripples in the Pond exercise, which you will also then use over the weeks to build up to a collected project, a project where everything comes together in one systemic approach. So we really look forward to seeing you this week again, and we'll be commenting and intervening in the discussions and on Sketch Drive. So hopefully you'll enjoy it, and we'll see you again in the next couple of days.
See you.
See you. Thank you.